welcome to this edition of Ask a Death Doula. My name is Suzanne O'Brien. Thank you so much for being here. We have a very special guest on this podcast, as you can tell. This is Glenn Klausner. I want to give you a little bit of background on Glenn, and then I'll ask him some questions, and we'll be able to get a really good insight on the magical work that he does. And also, we, at the end of this podcast, are going to announce something very special to you all. So I met Glenn a few times in passing in New York City, and most of you know that I moved to a new apartment on the west side about 2 years ago, and I've been seeing Glenn. He happens to live right on my magical block, which I love. And one day we got to talking a bit more, and we found that we had a lot of things in common. And so I told him that I was an end-of-life practitioner, created doula givers, but have worked with so many people at the end of life and they're elderly. And Glenn is a very, very prominent medium. So it was very interesting. We had these conversations about, for me, about giving validation to what my patients are telling me at the end of life. And I often share this with you. Obviously, in the training, I share it, but I share it in other ways as well, that life doesn't end when we have that death experience. And my patients will share what's happening with them, being visited by loved ones that have died already, saying what they feel they're going to. They often call it a home, a universal home. And Glenn was saying, well, you know, a lot of times he gets messages from people who have died to the people that he's reading. So I thought, wow, how fantastic to kind of have a podcast and talk about this. So thank you, Glenn, for being here. It's wonderful to have you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me here today,
Bet.
Suzanne.
Anytime. So let's start with, when did you realize that you had this gift?
I was really little. I was about 4 years of age, and that's where I kind of first recognized where I really knew I had it was when I was a teenager.
Okay, so can I ask you a question? When you were very little, did it seem natural to you? Did it seem odd that you were different? Or do you feel that every child has a little bit of that kind of access to a bigger picture, so to speak?
Every person has access to the bigger picture. For me, it was very normal because the first person I ever saw in my childhood home was my maternal grandfather, who I didn't know. He passed a few years before I was born, and I saw him walking around the house.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's pretty neat. I've done a lot of reading up on this, and I don't want to call it a phenomenon of people at the end of life seeing their loved ones who've passed already, because I feel, again, I've done a lot of reading and research, and it really is based in science. It's based in the law of physics, that we are energetic beings, and the first rule of energy, which is like 5th grade science, by the way, is that it's matter. So energy is matter, and matter cannot be destroyed. It can only change its form to a solid, a liquid, or a gas. So it sort of made sense to me really clearly what was happening was really happening based in science. And then I was reading that most children, you know, they have their imaginary friends or they're seeing things. And it's very funny because I saw a baby either today or yesterday, probably yesterday, who had this very they notice everything in their little carriages. They're reading energy. They're looking at everything and reading energy of people and is something safe or not safe, like little babies. So it's something that's very, I feel like, natural and organic, and then I feel like we lose it. Yeah. So
Do you want to know why that is?
I'd like to hear your.
So as children, we're all basically that free. Like when we come in, there's a blank slate, and everything like this word here on the wall, doula givers. It's like, let's say it was all blank, for instance.
Yeah.
That's us. And as we grow and mature, we're still pretty free, but then all these programs start to get instilled in us, and we become these abstracts of ideas, and those abstracts of ideas start to form the identity, the personality, and much of it's not even us, to tell you the truth. So that starts to now become the
benchmark
exactly
for what we
and then children start to now move away from the true source, what they were, which was this being non-separated from source energy and that pure positive love, and now is in this different vibration here.
I love this. Okay, because you all have heard me talk about when people are going back, that they talk about going back to that unconditional, loving, one energy. And these are people who didn't talk about this or believe in or even know what these terms mean. And even people who've been in cultures and religions that they have been practicing a certain set way would start to see this bigger picture of this unconditional, loving, non-judgmental energy that we're all connected to. So you, right, are bringing it in with the children, which is correct, and we go back to that.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? So for me, wanting to have you on the show and work with you is because there's so much heartache and fear surrounding end of life, and I really always want to share the education of what I've learned and seen because it gives people comfort, and sometimes it can help them to heal a little bit of their wounds when they feel that they might never see that person again. They have regrets. They wish they had been there or said something or did, things differently. And I want them to know that that moment is not missed, that it continues on and on, that our loved ones, just from an energetic standpoint, even just thinking about how much we love them and thinking about them, they're available to us in that sense right away. So it's great to sort of have, like you, with more of a clear line to that energy, being able to share the experiences.
Yes. But as I always tell people, even when they go, "Oh, they'll say that I'm their way to their loved one. I always tell them,
Yeah.
no, I am not.
Yeah.
You are the way to your loved ones.
Yes.
And I'm just that facilitator in the middle of the medium, whatever you want to call it, that is just doing what I'm doing. But really, you are the way to your loved ones.
I think that's beautiful because, again, I feel like we all have the ability to be open if we're looking. And I think that our loved ones, from what I've heard from, families will share with me so many stories after that person has died as well. Like, they call coincidences, and I don't believe in coincidences. One of the really telling things is one of the mother of one of the children that was in, that unfortunate incident in Connecticut, in Newtown. After that little one died, she was getting messages all over, and it was bringing her such peace in her heart, and she was open to them. And they were incredible, like they were very powerful. But I think that we have that happening all the time. So I love that you said you're the one that's in connection, if you would just watch or be open to it.
Just being open-hearted,
Yeah.
and open-minded.
Yeah.
And that helps, and that's what it makes information coming from spirit so much easier.
Yeah.
Because they're sending these different signals and thoughts and even signs or whatever you want to call them. But when you're open to it, open-hearted and open-minded, it's easier. When you're closed, it's tougher.
You know why I think,
and it's no different than with the living, because if you're close to the living, it's the same issue. So it's no different whether you're physical or non-physical.
So be open-minded and be loving and be open. But I think what you said is great because it's a vibration. So let's talk about that. So, all right. So I have done a lot of talks on the experiences that I've had at the end of life with my patients, what they've said, what I've seen, what they have said they've seen. And people will say, well, it's really nice, but can you prove that? And I'm like, well, I guess I can't prove it to you right now. But then I thought, can you prove that that didn't happen, what they're saying? But then we can prove it. So if you really want to go, and I've done so much research on this so that I could find some foundational proof that energy and all that can manifest and be what we're seeing and experiencing. And it's based in physics, the law of physics. So to make this as simple as I can to explain, and you can add in on this, but energy is happening all around us. We live in an energetic universe. We live on planet Earth, three-dimensional, so I can see the couch and Glenn, and he can see me. But there are things going on a vibrational level that I can't see with my eye. I guess Glenn can, because he's one of those magical people, and other people can get signs and see things at times. But it's all based on frequency. So the best way to say it, if you were a radio antenna and a radio dial, if the dial was set to something that aligned with your energy, you would have that connection. You can't see it. You can't see those radio waves, but you can hear them. I hope that makes sense. So very much based. Very
true.
Yeah. So which is what we're going to go over, and I'm going to be teaching that in the life class. But really, this is all scientifically based. In fact, Nikola Tesla said, if you really want to know the answers to the universe, base it and find out it in science. He said it's all there. Just understand energy. So there's lots of documentation. It's not out there. It's not crazy. It's actually the normal way, or the real way that it is.
Or the paranormal way.
I like that. I thought he was going to come up with something when he was doing that. He was looking at me. Yeah, so for me, I do really, again, there's such a fear of death in this society at this time that trying to help people to overcome that. And also, we don't plan on end of life, so it happens very quickly. And then there's so much complicated grief attached to that. And I just want people to have hope. And even if they have these wounds from the past where they have these regrets, somebody died and they couldn't be there, or their relationship wasn't the way it should be, or they miss them terribly. I can't give them that physical hug, and I can't get over that feeling of loss. I really want us to know that I feel like there's so much more going on here, and that we will always be connected to everything.
Always. And the fear of death is probably something that's going back for many, many centuries. We're just unaware of it because we're living in the current times. But throughout history, people probably have had a fear of death. And everything that we've ever been connected to, even people that are entertainers that we grew up listening to and that we love and admire, we could watch, let's say if they were actors, and we could watch them still in film form or music and listen to them in music format and still see that and still feel like, oh, they're alive. And in a sense, they are. So it's still there, you know.
Yeah, so I get that. And I get that, what I want people to know too is that you can always access the memories and what that person gave to you in your relationship at any time. It's always there for you. If you sit quietly, you can literally feel them with you, feel that love, because it's the most powerful thing that there is. So your journey, when did you decide to actually become like a professional medium? Did that sort of find you, as most of our callings kind of happen that way?
And well, as a joke I've made one time on a radio show, the minute I dyed my hair jet black, that's when it all changed. That's just a joke.
It's cute.
Yeah, it's look.
Great hair, by the way.
Thank you. I mean, I always had it as a little boy, but my whole thing starting out early, which I've said in many interviews, is that, and I still do music, I wanted to be a musician. So, and music and mediumship are so similar, they really are, because of the vibration and channeling.
Oh, I love that.
Words.
I love music.
Oh yeah, channeling music, where it comes from, channeling, lyrics, and there's very similar. So when I got to probably my late teens, it was starting to happen more. And then a friend of mine, she had passed away. She was a person that got me my very first job. She was more like an aunt to me, and I saw her in my then home. I was 20 at the time. So I still had no desire to be a medium. I didn't know any of that kind of stuff. I mean, I knew psychics. My mom was into psychics. My mom was very psychic herself, as well as my mom's mom, my grandmother. So when I got into my early 20s and thinking, what am I going to do with my life and this whole kind of thing, I would sometimes hang out with friends like yourself and all of a sudden be giving messages, whether it was about their love life or any things, or spirits were coming through. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't mean to make you cry.
I'm getting very emotional now.
In the words of Mike Myers in Coffee Talk, don't get verklempt. So, but anyway, so that whole thing when friends were saying that this is what you should do, I was like, no. And I kind of poo-pooed the whole idea. But then I was in Florida visiting my dad and my stepmother, who were on Earth at the time. And my dad didn't even know of my abilities. So to make a long story short, one day my stepmother took me for a ride in town and brought me to this new age known as a metaphysical shop, and it said Planet Earth. This is in Fort Myers, Florida. And I look, see this, and I look over to my stepmother because she was driving the car. I go, Dolores, I go, are you into this stuff? She goes, yeah, but I feel I was meant to bring you here. I go, why is that? She goes, something just told her that I was meant to meet the people there. And I did. And the funny thing was, 4 years later when I moved to Florida, I actually got a job working in this new age bookstore, a metaphysical bookstore called Planet Earth, and that's where I really got a big start. I started here in New York, but when I went to Florida, it really took off, and I was first of all, I was the youngest person working in there. I was the only male medium in there as well, and so my clientele just started to get really big. I was getting lots of kinds of press and being on radio and all kinds of things. So that was going on 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That happened. Even though I've been doing readings prior, so it's now going on 25 years. But it was amazing to me. And that really the thing is that once I made that commitment that this is what I was going to do, when I looked at people were putting me on my path, I kept meeting different people. They were saying you should be a medium and this whole thing. I looked at it as there was no accident, no coincidence.
Sure.
People were divinely guiding me. And once I made that commitment, like this is what I'm going to do with my life, the doors just opened easily.
Okay. I love that. So a couple of things I want to highlight here, because this is really important for everyone listening, is that the knowing. You have your own, what I call internal GPS. When you are in that vibrational space of, that unconditional love, no judgment, just being open and pure, it directs you really to where you're supposed to go. Now, your Dolores had that feeling. I'm supposed to take you here. And she honored that. And then you said the minute that you committed to that and said, okay, everything. So that's what I call like being in the pocket of alignment with your purpose. Like that was where you're supposed to be. And probably everything felt easy and like perfect at that time. Because that's what happened with me in hospice. Yeah. Like the minute that, and I knew this, I would go on my way to nursing school and I'd pass the hospice building and said, I'm going to work there one day. And I had no idea why I was saying that at the time. I had no idea. And I followed it. And the very first day I worked on hospice and I went to see patients, I said, I am in exactly the right place where I'm supposed to be. And it felt like the piece of the puzzle. And it was the best thing ever. So I love to share this because everyone has their purpose and your alignment. And it's just a question of listening to that and being open and finding it, which really will put you in that beautiful place. So that's so exciting. And then you were down there and it all kind of opened up for you. What do people most come to you for? Are they seeking certain things? Are there like the top 3 things that people ask? Do they always want to connect with loved ones that have passed, or do they want to know, will I win the lottery? Will I, you know what I mean? Like the more
all of the above. It's a mixture. Most people that seek me out seek because they want to communicate to a loved one or loved ones that have passed on, and knowing that they're still around and all these kinds of things.
Sure.
And that's very understandable and common. And then there's the people that are just not interested in talking to deceased loved ones. They want to know the psychical side of stuff, which spirits will give me anyway when I'm doing a reading. So, whether it's about someone's career or their health or love life or whatever. And a lot of times there'll be clients that just seek me out for those last 3 things, that deal with their love life or career or even health concerns. Okay.
So for the people who are seeking to talk to past loved ones, do they want to know, are they okay? All the time. I think that that's one of our main things, or 2, that sometimes something is left unsaid or undone and they want to forgive. And I find it really beautiful how when we cross over, how like all of the human aspects of like anger, resentment, guilt, and all that, just go away, and we're able to purely, unconditionally say, I'm sorry, or please forgive me, or all those beautiful things. And it gives people great closure and peace.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you from my own personal experience that when my mom transitioned, about 6 hours after she had passed, she came to me and I saw her on a kind of like a pedestal, and her mom and her dad were on each side of her. And my mom looked like she did when she was 16 or 17 years of age. So of course I recognized it because I've had plenty of pictures of her like that.
Yes.
And I saw her talking to this council of spirits, like almost think of like the Last Supper table. And I was watching this whole thing. I couldn't hear what they were saying to her. I couldn't hear what she was saying to them. I saw her like nodding, and she was talking to them. So when that ended, that scene, my grandparents dispersed, that table of people dispersed. My mom had turned to me, first of all suggesting that I eat something because I had not eaten from the moment I woke up. And I asked her, was that your guides or something, that were talking? She said, yes. And I couldn't hear you. And she said, well, you weren't meant to. But I said, what did they ask you? She said, they only asked me one thing. I go, what's that? She goes, they asked me, what did I learn about unconditional love when I was on Earth? I go, your conversation with them seemed very quick. She goes, to you it seemed quick. And so basically, from what I know, if you think, hey, what happens when you cross over? Well, one of the things is, of course, after you get the orientation, you see people that you knew, whether you had a great relationship with them or not. When you're briefed with your guides, if you will, what some call an ethereal council, there's a lot of different words for it, but when you're met up with those guys, they really will ask you the same question they asked my mom: what did you learn about love or unconditional love? And that's really what it all boils back down to. What did we learn about love? Love to ourselves, and then love to others. You know, they're not going to ask you, hey, how was that Mercedes-Benz you drove? They know. The spirits know how that Mercedes-Benz. They want to know, did you give your mother a ride in that Mercedes-Benz to go get groceries? You know, things like that as an example.
So this is so interesting because we haven't had this particular conversation about this. What my patients are talking to me about, what I firmly believe is that this whole journey and experience is to learn how to love unconditionally. And there's two types, to love others and to love yourself. You know, we're really hard on ourselves. And I feel like every relationship, everything we encounter is a road to get there. And there are difficult things that we go through. And if you can find the non-judgment and the learning of that lesson and even loving someone else who has done something wrong to you, that is unconditional love. And that is what they want to know. And I know there's no judgment when they're in their counsel, even though it sounds like it's very intimidating. I'm sure to us it is.
Sounds like it.
So just to clarify on that, there has been, people have said this, that you have guides, angels that work with you your whole experience. And that, there's often times that they say, ask for help, to God source energy, but they literally say that you have guides that help you along this earth journey. And there's so many great examples of that, where you see a situation that there's no way that could have turned out, like that person should have died, or that, I always believe that was an intervention because it was not meant to happen, because there's like no way that things could have gone the way that they went unless something was happening. And I think that's a great, but I think when you are quiet in your silence and you hear that voice, that's your highest GPS guiding you right. And try not to rationalize things mentally, feel them. And if you're knowing that it's the right thing for you to do, to move to a city or to go with this person or to do that job or just to go make a phone call. I was telling Glenn about an experience that I had where I was doing our Death Cafe over here. And I had this in my head. It was saying, go visit one of the older ladies in our neighborhood. And I tend to visit her sometimes, but I don't do it at night like that. I usually do it like early evening in the afternoon. So it was unusual. So I was like, okay, I felt that really strongly. When I went there, she lives alone. She opened her door and her bathroom was over flooding. And I had just got there, and this woman lives alone and also sits at the window. That place would have been flooded within hours. So, I had gotten there and the water was just trickling, and we stopped it and I cleaned up the bathroom, and it was like, that was just, to me, again, listening to, and I always follow that wherever I'm supposed to go. So can you share any reading that you've done that you feel really just to you was like, wow, that's going to really change that person's, just for the healing, or I think when we sometimes know that there's more to this experience, we tend to change the way we live our life, and it has a greater value and a sense of gratitude. Do you have any example of any of that, or you probably have? They're probably all examples of that. Okay, silly question. Sorry.
No, it's not a silly question. And did you know that in the 11th century, the word "silly" meant to be blessed or lucky? Somebody changed that word along the way. So I like when somebody says "silly question."
I like it.
It's a great question.
That's why they say there's no such things, but they should be like, it's blessed.
So what you're saying, is there any particular reading where the reading changed someone's life?
Well, that you feel that was like, and I know that you do this and all of them are of value, but sometimes like there's an experience that I have with a family and a patient at the end where I'm just like, that whole scenario is going to change the way those people live for the rest of their lives, because they were able to feel that unconditional love and be in the presence of something greater than we know it on earth.
Well, there's so many readings. I've done thousands of them, but if I had to probably draw from my experiences of one that is outside of my own personal, would probably be the first 9/11 spirit that I dealt with.
Okay.
Do you want me to elaborate?
Yeah. Can you? Yes, please.
Sure. So I was in Florida when 9/11 happened. I am a native New Yorker. I was actually in the World Trade Center when the first incident happened. I was there a week prior to that incident happening, and I had a bad feeling about the World Trade Center towers then. So anyway, when 9/11 happened, I had a girlfriend I was living with that day, and that morning, I got up actually at 4:44 in the morning. You know, people know a lot of these things with the triple
Yes,
digits as the angel
444.
time. But for some reason, I had this funny feeling something was not going to be right in the world that day. And then when I went back to sleep and I got up and at the time I had a little New Age bookshop myself in Florida, in Fort Myers, Florida, with my friend Janet, who is a colleague who's since passed away. And to try to make the long story short, so my phone was off. My cell phone was one of those flip phones, and Nokia's at the time. And I was driving, and the phone rang, and it was my girlfriend at the time. And she said, "Hey," I answered. I pulled over to the side of the road. I'm like, "That's weird that the phone was ringing," and because it was off. And she told me that a plane had hit the World Trade Center. I told her that's impossible because it's a no-fly zone. They're not allowed to fly around there. But when she told me about the size of the hole in the building, right away I knew what I saw the whole story playing out, and I knew both those buildings would come down. So anyway, 2 days later, when I get a phone, I was at this shop that I had, and I was about to leave for the day. I had finished the readings, and a client of mine who lived part-time in Florida and part-time was a New Yorker up in the Westchester area had called me, and I answered the phone, and she said, "Oh, Glenn," she said, "did I catch a bad time?" I said, "No." And right away I said to her, "Did you have someone pass in the World Trade Center?" She said, "Yes, my brother." I said, "Hold on." And I hear this guy in my head going, "My name is George." And he's telling me he worked in the World Trade Center tower with the antenna on top, and he was up in the low hundred, in the hundreds of the building. So when I told her, she said, "Yes, yes." And she said, he told me that his wife was on the extension phone with his sister, and the wife said hello to me. And I said, "I'm sorry." They thought he was possibly still alive, buried under the rubble. I said, "No, he was deceased." Now, what's kind of really weird to kind of give you the whole thing, in that moment, because people were still searching for their loved ones, thinking they were alive, he said to me, I'll never forget this as long as I live. He said to me, "This is the only way they'll know I'm alive." Because he explained to me he was in the first World Trade Center bombing. He told me I was blown to smithereens.
Okay.
And I'm listening. I go, "I can't say that to your wife and sister." He goes, "You don't understand." He was nice about it. He said, "They'll know for sure it's me because I would use that kind of lingo."
Oh.
And when I told them that, they started to chuckle. They actually laughed. They cried and they laughed. They said, "That's definitely him," because when he came home from the first World Trade Center bombing in '93, he told his wife, "I was almost blown to smithereens." He used those exact words.
Right.
So,
Wow.
him in particular, I dealt with him, this guy George, for quite a while. Even to this day, sometimes he'll still come and visit me and give me like little chit chats and just myself. But when I worked with his family for a while, there was I could go into a whole story about him. If I was to write a book, I could write. He would be one chapter in itself.
Okay.
And all the stuff anyway. But he gave through those readings that I read for his family members, things there was no way I could know, things that would. Maybe somebody like a sister who couldn't validate, she would ask another sister, and the sister would validate it. That I think they knew, despite that tragedy, that love was still very much alive. And this guy, a matter of fact, I'll tell you something really quick about George. I asked him in that first reading, I go, "Are you angry at the people who did this?" He said to me, "No, I had no hatred for any person on earth at all. He wasn't prejudiced towards anybody." And they told me that he really was like that. He didn't have that issue with people.
Yeah.
So he wasn't mad.
Yeah. Wow, powerful.
Yeah.
So even though we lose people, and sometimes with real quick tragic accidents, they're still existing. And for me, it's really sharing with you, again, when people are at the end of life, many times the person who's leaving, who's dying, is ready to go and is the most healthy. I often say this, is the most healthy in the room. It's the family that's a mess. And of course, we don't talk about end of life and we don't share these kind of conversations. So we don't know that there's that available to us. And I think it's really important for us to do it. And the fact that we can tie it into science, I think really validates and makes it very special. So with that, I want to announce that we're going to be doing a very special collaboration. So we are going to be doing a one-day workshop August 24th in New York City, and it's going to be called Heaven on Earth. And what that is it's going to be the life class that I teach. It's going to take the spiritual aspect of it. It's really going to be showing you how, based in science, your vibrational level you're in charge of, and you can change that with how you feel, how you think, and other ways. Again, being open and receptive, unconditional loving, non-judgmental, and then we're going to do that. And at the end of that day, Glenn is going to come in and he's going to see if there are messages from past loved ones that he would like to then give to the people that are here in the workshop. So it's going to be a combination. It's called Heaven on Earth, because if you believe that it is a vibration, heaven is right here and accessible to us. You see it in the flowers, you see it in nature, you see it in animals, and you can see it with your loved ones and friends. So we want to show you how you can access that here. So again, it will be at 9 o'clock all day on the 24th. We only have a limited number of spaces, so I'm going to put a link below where you can send us an email if you are interested in coming. It'll be August 24th, Heaven on Earth, a one-day workshop of healing, hope, and happiness. So I want to thank you so much. And can you tell people, you're welcome. Can you tell people where they can get in touch with you if they would like to follow up?
Sure, they can go directly to my website, which is named after me. It's Glenn with 2 N's, Klausner, KLAUSNER.com.
Okay, and I'm going to put that link down below as well. So thank you, Glenn, so
You're
much.
welcome. Thank you too, Suzanne.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
All right, you guys, I'll see you in the next episode of Ask a Death Doula. Have a great day. Bye.